Imagine stepping outside your own house, coffee in hand, only to find a tow truck hooking up your car, in your driveway. Now imagine the HOA Karen responsible, furious, self-righteous, and completely unaware that I'm a cop. Yeah, that actually happened. The story starts a few months back when I moved into a nice suburban neighborhood. It was supposed to be a peaceful place, well-manicured lawns, friendly neighbors, and, unfortunately, the dreaded homeowners association. Now, don't get me wrong, I've dealt with HOAs before. I know their rules can be annoying, but they exist to keep the community in order. The problem isn't the HOA itself, it's the people who take it upon themselves to enforce the rules. Enter Karen. Karen wasn't just any HOA member, because, funnily enough, she wasn't actually on the HOA board. She just acted like she ran the entire neighborhood. She walked around with a clipboard, snapping photos of violations, issuing warnings that had no real authority, and basically terrorizing the residents over the pettiest things. I had the misfortune of meeting her on my first week in the neighborhood. I had just parked my personal vehicle, a black, unmarked police cruiser, in my driveway. It wasn't a standard patrol car with flashing lights or decals, just an official vehicle I used for work, which I had every right to park in my own driveway. Karen wasted no time. She appeared out of nowhere, marching up to me like a hall monitor on a power trip. "Excuse me, sir," she said in that high-pitched, condescending tone that just screamed Karen energy. "You can't park that here." I raised an eyebrow. I live here." She folded her arms. "This is a private community, and HOA rules strictly prohibit commercial or police vehicles from being parked in driveways. You'll need to move it to a garage or off the premises." I almost laughed. This isn't a marked patrol car. It's my personal work vehicle." "Well, it looks like a police car," she snapped. "And we don't allow those in driveways. It ruins the aesthetic of the neighborhood." I sighed, already regretting this conversation. "Karen." "It's Ms. Patterson," she corrected, her lips pursed. "Right. Ms. Patterson," I said, barely holding back an eye roll. "Unless the actual HOA has a problem, I'm parking my car in my driveway." She huffed. "Well, I have a problem. And I'll be reporting this." I shrugged. "Go ahead." And with that, I walked inside, figuring that was the end of it. Oh, how wrong I was. The next morning, I woke up, got dressed, and stepped outside, only to freeze. A tow truck was in my driveway. My car was already halfway lifted off the ground. For a second, I thought I was seeing things. Was this some mistake? But then I saw her. Karen, standing off to the side, arms crossed, with a smug little smirk. I marched up to the tow truck driver. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" He barely looked up, just gestured to a clipboard. "HOA violation. They called us in to tow an unauthorized vehicle." Karen interjected before I could respond. "I warned you," she said, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. "You can't park that thing in our neighborhood." I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "This is my driveway. You can't tow a car from private property without the owner's consent." Karen's smirk widened. "Oh, but I can. The HOA has rules, and you violated them. I spoke to the board this morning, and they agreed your vehicle is inappropriate for our community." I crossed my arms. "I highly doubt that." The tow truck driver, clearly just a guy trying to do his job, looked between us, suddenly sensing the tension. "Look, man, I was just called in for a job. If you have an issue, take it up with the HOA." "Oh, don't worry. I will," I said, reaching into my pocket. Karen scoffed. "Oh, please, there's nothing you can do." That's when I pulled out my badge. The tow truck driver froze. Karen blinked. "I'm a police officer," I said slowly, watching as the color drained from Karen's face. "And you? You just tried to illegally tow the vehicle of a law enforcement officer from his own driveway without a court order." The tow truck driver immediately unhooked the car. Karen, however, wasn't done. She doubled down. "You're abusing your power," she shrieked. "I'm calling 911. You're impersonating a cop." I let out a slow exhale. "Go ahead." And she did. I stood there, arms crossed, while she ranted into the phone about a dangerous man impersonating an officer in her neighborhood. Meanwhile, the tow truck driver, now looking absolutely terrified, got in his truck, mumbled something about not getting paid enough for this, and sped off. Not 5 minutes later, a squad car pulled up. And the responding officer? A close friend of mine. Karen, still not realizing what was happening, ran up to him. "Officer, thank God. Arrest this man. His pretending to be a cop, and his threatening me." The officer looked at me, then at Karen, then back at me. Then he laughed. And when I say laughed, I mean he bent over, hands on his knees, cackling. Karen's smug expression faltered. What's so funny?" The officer wiped a tear from his eye. That is literally Detective Ops' last name. He's been with the force for over a decade." Karen's face went beet red. But he parked a police car in his driveway. That's against the HOA rules." The officer sighed. HOA rules don't override state law. You can't tow someone's car from their own driveway. That's illegal." Karen started to stammer. But he can't." "Actually," I said, "I can. And right now, you're dangerously close to filing a false police report." Karen's jaw snapped shut. The officer gave her a look. "Do we need to take this further?" For a moment, I actually thought she might apologize. But nope. Instead, she spun on her heel and stormed back to her house, slamming the door behind her. The officer chuckled, shaking his head. "Man, you really know how to make an entrance." I sighed, rubbing my temples. "Yeah. Welcome to my new neighborhood." Little did I know, this was far from over. The morning air was crisp, but my blood was boiling. My car, my own car, had been halfway lifted by a tow truck, right from my own driveway. I had dealt with criminals, aggressive suspects, and all sorts of high-stress situations as a cop, but this? This was a different kind of ridiculous. Karen, standing a few feet away, had her arms folded with the smuggest expression I'd ever seen. The tow truck driver, on the other hand, looked like he was just trying to get through his day without unnecessary drama. I took a slow breath, forcing myself to stay calm. I had to handle this right. "All right," I said, keeping my voice even. "Let's start over. Who called for this tow?" The driver, a scruffy-looking guy in his 40s, checked his clipboard. HOA violation. Some lady named, Ms. Patterson." He looked up at Karen, who beamed proudly. "That would be me," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "I already explained this to you yesterday. Your vehicle is in violation of HOA guidelines. It needs to be moved immediately." I fought the urge to laugh. She really thought she had authority here. I turned back to the driver. "Let me make something crystal clear. This is my driveway. This is my property. And unless you have a legal court order or authorization from the actual HOA board, you have zero right to tow my car." The driver frowned. "Well," she said. I interrupted, pointing at Karen, "is not a board member of the HOA. And she does not have the authority to order a tow." The driver's brows knitted together. I could tell he was starting to piece things together. "Wait, so you're saying?" "I'm saying," I continued, "that if you go through with this, you'll be committing an unlawful tow. And that means you'll be on the hook for damages, an illegal seizure complaint, and possible fines." Now that made him pause. Karen's expression darkened. "You can't intimidate him like that. I gave him permission." "You don't have permission to do anything," I snapped. "This isn't some parking lot or public street. This is private property. My private property." Karen clenched her jaw. "The HOA has rules. And you don't have the authority to enforce them," I shot back. The tow truck driver shifted uncomfortably. "Look, man, I just take orders. If she doesn't have authority, then I'm out. He started lowering my car back down. Karen's smugness vanished. No, you have to tow it. I already told you. You told him wrong, I said flatly. And if you try this again, I'll make sure the HOA knows you're fraudulently using their name to harass residents. Karen's face was beet red, but she wasn't done yet. In a move so predictably Karen, she pulled out her phone and called 911. I stared at her in disbelief. You are not seriously doing this, I muttered. She held the phone to her ear, eyes locking onto mine with pure satisfaction. Yes, hello, I need to report an aggressive man impersonating a police officer. I couldn't help it. I actually laughed. The tow truck driver let out a low whistle and stepped away, clearly deciding he wanted no part of this. Yeah, I need officers here immediately, Karen continued. His threatening me and refusing to comply with HOA rules. I crossed my arms. You sure you want to do this, Karen? She glared at me. I don't want to. But you left me no choice. The sheer audacity of this woman. So, I stood there and waited. Not 5 minutes later, a patrol car pulled up. And I swear to God, the second I saw who stepped out, I knew Karen's day was about to get a whole lot worse. It was my buddy, Officer Mike, a guy I had worked with for years. We had been on dozens of cases together, and the moment he saw me, he grinned. Yo, detective. Didn't expect to see you this early. Karen's smug expression shattered. Wait, what? She stammered, looking between us. I smirked. You called 911 on a cop. Great call, Karen. Mike frowned, looking at her. You're the caller. Karen's lips pursed. Yes. I didn't know he was really a cop. He was acting threatening and trying to intimidate me. Mike gave her a blank stare, then turned back to me. What's going on here? I gave him a quick rundown, how Karen had illegally tried to tow my car, how she had falsely represented the HOA, and how she was now wasting police resources over her bruised ego. Mike sighed. Karen, do you realize that filing a false police report is a crime? Karen's mouth flapped like a fish. I didn't lie. I really thought. You thought wrong, he said flatly. And now you've wasted our time. She tried to switch gears. But his car is against HOA rules. I have every right to have it removed. Mike crossed his arms. No, you don't. HOAs can't override private property rights. You need an official board decision and a legal order to tow from a homeowner's driveway. Karen was losing it. But, he. Mike sighed and turned to me. You want to press charges for the false report. I considered it. I really did. But watching Karen sputter and flail in real time was honestly punishment enough. Nah, I said. Just let the HOA handle her. Karen blinked. Wait, what do you mean? Mike gave her a sharp look. We'll be reporting this to the HOA board. And from what I'm hearing, you've been making up rules that don't exist. Karen looked like she wanted to disappear. Mike turned back to me. If she tries this again, call me. Oh, trust me, I said, locking eyes with Karen. If she so much as breathes near my car, I'll be making my own call. Karen turned and stormed off, her face burning with humiliation. Mike chuckled. Damn, man. You really pissed her off. I shrugged. Guess she picked the wrong driveway. The tow truck driver, now looking relieved, gave me a nod. Sorry about the trouble, man. Some of these HOA folks, man. With that, he climbed into his truck and drove off. Mike smirked at me. So, how long do you think before she tries something else? I sighed. Knowing her? Not long. And unfortunately, I was right. I thought the whole situation with Karen would end after she got humiliated in front of my buddy, Officer Mike. I thought she'd take the loss, slink back to her house, and maybe, just maybe, find something better to do with her life. I was wrong. Because instead of accepting reality, Karen did what all entitled people do when backed into a corner, she doubled down. That same evening, While I was relaxing on my porch, enjoying the peace that came with knowing my car was safe in my driveway, my phone started blowing up with notifications. Neighborhood Facebook group, new post by Karen Patterson. Oh, this was going to be good. I clicked on the post, and instantly, I felt the second-hand embarrassment radiating off my screen. Police cars revolving light warning to all residents. Police cars revolving light. There is a dangerous, aggressive man living in our neighborhood, pretending to be a police officer to intimidate people. He even had his friend, another fake cop, show up to protect him. He tried to threaten me today after I tried to enforce our community rules. If we allow people like this to break HOA regulations, what's next? What if he's a criminal? What if our kids aren't safe? I am demanding that the HOA take action immediately. Who's with me? #protect our community. I had to physically stop myself from laughing. She was really trying to spin this into me being the bad guy? The comments? Oh, they were pure gold. Linda P. Wait, isn't he an actual cop? Jason W. Karen, didn't you literally just call 911 on him and get proven wrong? Mike B. My buddy, the actual officer. I was the fake cop you called today. And I can assure you, I am very real. Sarah T. Girl, just take the L and go inside. Loudly crying face. Greg R. HOA President Karen, please do not post false information. We will be addressing your behavior at the next HOA meeting. Now that caught my attention. The HOA was finally stepping in? About time. But Karen wasn't done yet. The next morning, I woke up to another round of insanity. I walked outside to grab my newspaper, yeah, I'm old school like that, and saw a printed flyer taped to my mailbox. Actually, scratch that, every mailbox in the neighborhood had one. I pulled it off and read the title. Do you know who your neighbor really is? Oh, for God's sake. I skimmed through the rest, and it was exactly what I expected, another unhinged rant about me, filled with lies, exaggerations, and some truly hilarious fearmongering. Apparently, I was a dangerous threat, an undercover criminal, and a menace to the neighborhood. And my favorite part? If we don't take action now, he could be running illegal activities right under our noses. Lady, I'm a detective. The only illegal activity going on here is your nonsense. I shook my head, chuckling as I walked back inside. This woman had lost her damn mind. By noon, the HOA board had officially had enough. Greg, the HOA president, sent out an email to all residents. Attention homeowners. It has come to our attention that a resident, Karen Patterson, has been spreading false and defamatory information regarding another homeowner. Please be advised that these statements are not supported by the HOA and are being addressed accordingly. Furthermore, HOA board members are the only individuals authorized to issue violations or take action regarding community rules. Any resident found misrepresenting themselves as an HOA official will face appropriate consequences. This matter will be discussed at the next HOA meeting. Translation: Karen, shut up before we shut you up. The best part? She lost her mind in the comments. Karen, I am not spreading false information. The community deserves to know who they are living next to. Greg, HOA President Karen, we have reviewed the situation. You do not have the authority to enforce or issue any HOA violations. Please refrain from making false claims. Karen, I'm just trying to keep the community safe. Linda P. Safe from what, Karen? A guy parking in his own driveway? Jason W. Girl, stop. You already embarrassed yourself yesterday. This is just sad now. At this point, Karen wasn't just losing, it was a full-on landslide against her. And then came the nail in the coffin. A new comment popped up from a neighbor I hadn't met yet. Emily R. Hey guys. Just a heads up, I work in real estate, and I just noticed that Karen's house is up for sale. Flushed face. Wait. What? I clicked on the link she provided, and sure enough, Karen's house was listed on Zillow. I nearly choked on my drink. She was moving. I had expected her to cause more chaos. to try and fight back even harder. But no. She was rage-quitting. And honestly, it was hilarious. The comments went wild. Mike B. LMAO, she's running away. Linda P. Sue, she cares about the community but is leaving? Rolling on the floor laughing. Jason W. Can we throw a block party when she moves out? And that, my friends, was the beginning of the end for Karen. But because Karen couldn't just take the loss quietly, she had to go out with one final meltdown. Later that evening, while I was taking my trash out, I heard her screaming on her phone in her front yard. I can't believe this. These people are bullying me. No, MOM, I did not lose. They are just sheep. I am not the problem. I don't care if the realtor said my reputation is a problem. I'm not lowering the price. I couldn't help but grin. This woman had gone nuclear, and now it was blowing up right in her face. I casually walked past her and waved. Hey, Karen. Everything all right? She glared daggers at me, then stormed inside, slamming the door so hard it rattled. Yep. She was done for. Karen had been defeated, humiliated, and outplayed at every turn. The entire neighborhood had turned against her. The HOA had publicly condemned her actions. Her own house was now on the market. Most people would take the L, quietly pack their things, and move on. But not Karen. Oh no. Karen wasn't going down without one final, desperate power move, a last stand, if you will. And let me tell you, it was the most unhinged, self-destructive tantrum I had ever witnessed. The next morning, I noticed something strange. Karen's car was missing. For a second, I thought she might have actually started packing up to leave. Maybe she had finally realized that there was no winning this battle. But then, as I was sipping my morning coffee on the porch, a moving truck rolled into her driveway. My first thought? Oh, thank God, she's finally leaving. But then, I saw something that made me spit out my coffee. Karen wasn't packing. She was installing a giant, ugly-ass "No Police Allowed" sign in her front yard. I blinked. Was I hallucinating? Did she seriously just escalate from Facebook meltdowns to literal neighborhood anarchy? I grabbed my phone and took a picture, sending it to my buddy, Officer Mike. Me, you seeing this? Mike, dude. There's no way she's this stupid. Me, oh, she is. Mike, hold on. I gotta show the guys at the station. BRB. I had a bad feeling about this. And sure enough, it got worse. An hour later, a HOA emergency meeting was called. Karen, still on her power trip from hell, actually showed up. And I, being the petty man that I am, decided to sit front row with popcorn. The HOA board looked beyond done with her. Greg, the HOA president, rubbed his temples. Karen, we've had multiple complaints about you again. Karen sat stiffly, arms folded. And I have complaints about him. She jabbed a finger in my direction. Greg sighed. You put up a sign that says "No Police Allowed," Karen. She nodded, proudly. That's right. This is a private community, and I am exercising my right to not have law enforcement here. I've spoken to a lawyer. Greg cut her off. Karen, that is not how this works. She scoffed. Oh, so you're siding with the cop now? Greg leaned forward, his patience hanging on by a thread. Karen, this has nothing to do with taking sides. You are not in charge of this neighborhood. You are not on the HOA board. You have no authority over who lives here or what they do. Karen's face was burning red. So you're just going to let a fake cop? Greg slammed his palm on the table. He is literally a detective, Karen. The entire room went silent. Karen's mouth flapped open, but no sound came out. Greg exhaled, rubbing his face. Karen, your house is already on the market. Just move. Stop making this harder for yourself. Karen wasn't having it. You think I'm just going to let him win? No. No way. This is my neighborhood. I built this community, and I'm not leaving until I make sure he's gone, too. Greg gave her a tired look. Karen, are you threatening a homeowner? That shut her up real quick. Her eyes darted around the room. She realized what she had just done. She stood up abruptly. "This meeting is a joke," she screeched. "I'm done with this." She stormed out, slamming the door behind her so hard it shook the walls. The room sat in stunned silence for a few seconds. Then Greg turned to me and asked, "Do you want to press charges for harassment?" I took a moment to think. Nah. Karen was spiraling out of control all on her own. "She's not worth it," I said, standing up. "She'll self-destruct before I even have to." And boy, I was right. The very next morning, Karen went full nuclear. I stepped outside to get my morning paper and froze. My entire driveway was covered in garbage. Bags of trash. Rotten food. Even an old, moldy couch. I took a deep breath. Karen. I knew it was her. And so did my doorbell camera. I pulled up the footage and, sure enough, there she was at 2 a.m., dragging a pile of junk from her garage and dumping it onto my driveway. I sent the footage to Officer Mike. Me, so, what are the laws on illegal dumping? Mike, oh, she's screwed. Me, wanna come by and chat with her? Mike, on my way. 20 minutes later, Mike pulled up, with another officer and a city code enforcement official. Karen came outside, saw them, and immediately tried to backpedal. "Oh, officers. I was just..." Mike held up a hand. "Karen, we have you on camera." Her face turned ghost white. That's not." The city official stepped forward, holding up a citation form. "Illegal dumping is a serious offense. You're facing a fine of up to $5,000. Karen actually shrieked. "5,000? Mike smirked. "Yup. And if you keep harassing your neighbor, we can press additional charges." Karen's mouth opened. Then closed. Then, without another word, she spun on her heel and marched inside. I turned to Mike. "Think she's finally done?" Mike chuckled. "Oh, she's done. She's beyond done." And just like that, Karen gave up. She took down her stupid sign. Stopped harassing me. And by the end of the month, she was gone. On the day she moved out, a group of neighbors gathered on the sidewalk, waving her goodbye with big, exaggerated smiles. Linda even yelled, "Don't let the HOA hit you on the way out." Karen? She just scowled and sped off without looking back. And the moment her car disappeared from view, someone popped a bottle of champagne. Karen was officially history. And me? I parked my perfectly legal police cruiser in my driveway, sat on my porch, and enjoyed the sweetest victory of all. Karen had lost every battle, but her final defeat was still coming. And let me tell you, when karma finally came knocking, it didn't just tap politely, it kicked her door down and flipped her life upside down. I thought the illegal dumping incident, the massive fine, and the collective rejection from the entire neighborhood would be enough to make her surrender. I thought she had finally accepted defeat. But nope. Karen wasn't just trying to leave, she was trying to scorch the earth on her way out. It all started when her for sale sign mysteriously vanished from her yard. Now, most people would assume a prank, or maybe some neighborhood kid messing around. But no. Karen had ripped the sign out herself. And replaced it with a new one. House sold. Goodbye to this trash neighborhood. The pettiness was astronomical. But what made it even funnier? Her house hadn't actually sold yet. She was struggling to find a buyer, because no one wanted to deal with the aftermath of her HOA nonsense. The real estate agent, Emily, had already spilled the tea in the neighborhood Facebook group. Emily, hey, just a heads up, Karen's house has been sitting on the market because multiple potential buyers found out about her HOA drama and backed out. She's blaming me for not selling it fast enough, but it's literally her fault. The comments? Pure gold. Jason W. So you're telling me her no police allowed sign didn't attract buyers? Smiling face with open mouth and tightly closed eyes. Sarah T. Can we leave bad Yelp reviews on her house? Mike B. My officer buddy, I think this is what they call consequences of one's own actions. Karen, obviously livid, was now taking out her rage on the real estate agent. She was sending angry emails, demanding that the house be sold at full price, immediately, and even threatening to sue. Emily, who had zero patience for Karen's nonsense, finally snapped. And that's when she did something genius. She updated the home's online listing. Under Neighborhood Perks, she added, "Friendly community, strong HOA oversight, proactive residents who take pride in their neighborhood." Under Property History, she added, "Previous owner was highly engaged in HOA matters and community discussions." Translation? Everyone looking at the house now knew a full-blown HOA Karen had lived there. And buyers? They ran for the hills. Her house sat unsold for weeks. And then? Her asking price dropped. First by $15,000. Then $30,000. And by the end of the month? $50,000. It was beautiful. The woman who had spent years trying to control every detail of this neighborhood had now lost tens of thousands of dollars because of her own behavior. And that wasn't even the best part. Karen's final, humiliating exit. By now, everyone in the neighborhood knew she was leaving. And because we're petty and united, we did what any good, mildly vengeful community would do. We threw a block party. On the very day Karen's moving truck was scheduled to arrive. Was this necessary? No. Was it hilarious? Absolutely. Neighbors fired up grills. Kids rode bikes in the street. Someone even hired a mariachi band. And when Karen finally stormed out of her house, furious, suitcase in hand, she was met with the most cheerful, exaggerated waves imaginable. Linda P., holding a drink. "Goodbye, Karen. We'll miss you." Jason W., "Have fun finding a neighborhood that tolerates you." Mike B., "Again, my officer buddy, remember, no illegal dumping in your next community." Karen stumped over to her car, seething. I couldn't resist. I walked up, smiling. "Need help loading anything?" I asked. She glared daggers at me. "Go to hell." I nodded. "Safe travels, Karen." And then, the universe itself decided to join in on the karma. Just as Karen slammed her car door shut, her engine refused to start. Silence. Her eyes widened. She tried again. Click, click, click. Her battery was dead. And that's when Jason yelled from across the street, "Maybe you should call a tow truck." The entire block erupted in laughter. Karen, shaking with pure, unfiltered rage, punched her steering wheel, got out, and stormed back into her house to call for roadside assistance. It took another 2 hours for her to finally leave. By the time the tow truck arrived, her soul had fully left her body. She didn't even look at anyone as she was towed out of the neighborhood, one final, poetic exit. The aftermath, the neighborhood celebrates. The moment Karen was officially gone, the neighborhood group chat exploded. Greg, HOA President, reminder: our next meeting will be dedicated to removing all the ridiculous rules Karen put in place. See you all there. Linda P. Now that Karen's gone, can we have an actual community barbecue? Jason W. HOA equals happy once again. And the best part? The very next day, a new family toured Karen's former house. They loved the place. They put in an offer immediately. And within a week, Karen's house was officially sold, but at a price that was $62,000 less than what she originally wanted. And that, my friends, was the final blow. Karen had spent years trying to rule over this neighborhood. She had spent months fighting me. And in the end, she lost everything: her reputation, her house, and her precious control over the HOA. And now? We park whatever the hell we want in our driveways. Game over. The day Karen's car got towed out of the neighborhood was the happiest day this community had seen in years. It was like the end of a long, grueling war, one that had divided the people, created unnecessary drama, and wasted everyone's time. But finally, the tyrant had fallen. And the aftermath? Oh, it was glorious. The HOA's first order of business: erasing Karen's legacy. With Karen officially exiled, the HOA wasted no time undoing her reign of terror. Greg, the HOA president sent out a formal notice. Attention residents. With recent events behind us, we will be revising and eliminating several unnecessary restrictions that have caused confusion and stress. Police vehicles AIE allowed in driveways. No resident may act as an independent enforcer of HOA rules. All community violation reports must go through the official HOA board. Illegal towing of a resident's vehicle will result in immediate fines and penalties. Thank you all for your patience. We are committed to restoring peace in our neighborhood. Translation? Everything Karen did is gone. You're welcome. And let me tell you, the group chat exploded with cheers. Jason W. Finally. Freedom. Linda P. So, does this mean I can finally put up my flamingo decorations again? Sarah T. I'm painting my mailbox pink just because I can. Mike B. My cop buddy no, really, what's stopping us from throwing a massive Karen is gone party? And you know what? We did. The good riddance, Karen block party. A week after Karen left, the neighborhood threw an actual community party. And this time? We didn't have to worry about a clipboard-wielding lunatic trying to shut it down. The grills were fired up. Music played. Kids ran around without Karen threatening to fine their parents for excessive noise. Linda even decorated her front lawn with a giant flamingo display, just to celebrate. And the best part? Someone printed out a life-sized cardboard cutout of Karen and set it up in the middle of the block. People took pictures with it. Someone put a "for sale, low price" sign on it. And as the sun set, we lit it on fire in a mini bonfire. Petty? Maybe. Deserved? Absolutely. Meanwhile, in Karen's new life. Now, you'd think Karen would just move away, reflect on her mistakes, and start over somewhere new, right? Wrong. She was still causing chaos, just somewhere else. A month after she left, Emily, our local real estate agent, shared an update. Emily So, I just got off the phone with a friend who works in another HOA community. Guess who just moved there? Jason W. No. No way. Sarah T. Oh my god, those poor people. Mike B. We should send them a warning. As it turned out, Karen had moved into another HOA-controlled neighborhood just a few towns over. And within 2 weeks, she had already filed 3 complaints against her new neighbors, tried to correct people's lawn decorations, attempted to join the HOA board and was rejected, sent a long, unhinged email to the new HOA accusing them of being corrupt and threatening legal action. It was like watching a bad sequel of a terrible movie. But the best part? Her new HOA wasn't having it. The HOA president there, a retired military veteran, sent her own email back. Karen, we have received your numerous complaints and accusations. If you are unhappy with how this community is run, you are more than welcome to leave. However, we will not tolerate false violations, unauthorized rule enforcement, or baseless threats against our board. Consider this your first and final warning. Translation? Try that nonsense here, and we will destroy you. And based on what we later heard, Karen had already made enemies with multiple neighbors. Honestly, it was kind of beautiful to watch. The final, sweetest justice. A few weeks later, something happened that made our neighborhood chat explode again. Greg, HOA President Guys. You won't believe this. Faced with tears of joy, he attached a link to a Zillow listing. And when I clicked it, I nearly died laughing. Karen's new house was already up for sale. She was moving again. She hadn't even lasted 3 months in her new neighborhood before getting chased out. We didn't know the full details, but based on what Emily's real estate connections told us, Karen had filed a lawsuit against her new HOA. It got thrown out immediately. Tried to organize a rebellion against the HOA board. Nobody joined. Got into a screaming match with multiple neighbors over their unacceptable Christmas decorations. Was fined repeatedly for trying to enforce fake rules. Finally gave up and decided to move, again. And honestly, it was perfect. Because after years of making our lives miserable, she was now trapped in a never-ending cycle of her own making. She would move somewhere new, try to control everything, fail spectacularly, and run away when it all collapsed. It was the fate she deserved. Back in our neighborhood, they've never been better. The HOA board is actually reasonable now. We never hear about petty violations anymore. People decorate their homes however they want. And the best part? We still joke about Karen to this day. Every Halloween, someone dresses up as her. Every block party, we bring out the Karen cutout for old time's sake. And whenever someone complains about petty HOA rules, we say, at least it's not Karen. She became a legend. A cautionary tale. And most importantly, she was gone for good. The HOA Karen reign of terror was finally over. And damn, did it feel good. After everything Karen had put this neighborhood through, years of ridiculous rule enforcement, petty power trips, and the absolute clown show of her final meltdown, it was over. We had won. Karen was gone, her house sold at a massive loss, her reputation forever stained, and her delusional quest for control reduced to nothing but a cautionary tale. And the best part? She wasn't our problem anymore. She was someone else's headache now. Final thoughts, the lasting impact of Karen's chaos. Looking back, the whole thing felt like a bad reality TV show, one where an entitled HOA tyrant tried to take over a peaceful neighborhood, only to be completely outplayed and humiliated at every turn. It had everything. White heavy checkmark, an unhinged villain who wouldn't quit. White heavy checkmark, a ridiculous escalation of events. White heavy checkmark, an entire community coming together to defeat a common enemy. White heavy checkmark, the ultimate karmic justice. And let's not forget, she literally tried to tow a police detective's car from his own driveway. Like, seriously? What was she thinking? But beyond the drama and chaos, there was something surprisingly wholesome about how the neighborhood came together through all of this. Before Karen left, people were constantly on edge, worried about fake violations, HOA fines, and the constant threat of her clipboard-wielding nonsense. Now, we actually talk to each other. We hang out. We enjoy our homes without fear of some wannabe dictator knocking on our doors. She tried to rule with fear and control. And instead, she made us stronger as a community. The irony is delicious. Lessons learned, how to handle a Karen in your neighborhood. If there's one takeaway from this entire saga, it's this. Entitled people like Karen only have power if you let them. She spent years intimidating neighbors into thinking she was in charge, when in reality, she had zero actual authority. And once people stopped complying, her whole empire crumbled. So if you ever find yourself dealing with an HOA tyrant or an entitled busybody, remember this. White heavy checkmark, know your rights. HOA rules are not laws, and they can't override state and federal regulations. White heavy checkmark, don't be afraid to push back. Karen relied on people being too afraid or too passive to question her. The moment we stood up to her, she lost control. White heavy checkmark, document everything. Thanks to security cameras, screenshots, and legal records, we had rock-solid proof against her when it mattered most. White heavy checkmark, community is stronger than entitlement. Karen tried to rule by division and fear. But when the community united against her, she had no chance. One last twist, the fate of Karen. You'd think that after being kicked out of 2 different neighborhoods, Karen would finally learn her lesson. But, would you believe me if I told you she moved again? Because a few months later, someone posted this in our old HOA Facebook group. Linda P. Guys, I just heard Karen moved into another HOA community. Jason W. New, she's doing it again. Mike B. My officer buddy, this woman has no self-awareness. And this time? She tried to run for the HOA board immediately. The entire community voted against her. Unanimously. She didn't even last 6 months before she was selling her house again. It's like she was cursed to roam the earth, searching for a neighborhood to control, and failing every time. A Karen with no kingdom. Fitting, right? Share your HOA nightmares. So, Now that you've heard my insane story, I want to hear yours. Have you ever dealt with a Karen in your neighborhood? Ever had an HOA nightmare that made you question your sanity? Drop your wildest stories in the comments below. And hey, if you enjoyed this Entitled People takedown, don't forget to have a checkmark like this video, because Karen's rage alone is worth it. Face with tears of joy. Have a checkmark. Subscribe for more wild stories, we've got plenty of them. Have a checkmark. Hit that notification bell so you never miss the next crazy HOA drama. And remember, if someone tries to tow your car from your own driveway, just make sure they don't mess with a cop. See you in the next one.